So here is the case, here the CT scan to the opportunity to study everything. And here, what I'm doing, I'm opening the flap. And as I told you yesterday, the therapy changed if we are dealing, for example, with a young woman like here, 19 years old, or we are talking with a very old woman. Because with a very old woman here, I don't open the flap. I go to the gum. Very easy surgery, no bleeding, no complication. Why? Because I want to do something very gentle, and because I know that the prospective of life of the patient is not so long. On the other hand, here is a young girl. I know the healing will be very fast and very good, and the prospective of life is very, very long. So I want to put the implant in the very precise position to ensure a very, very long bridge work for this girl. So I gently open the flap. I avoid to do the releasing the incision on the central incisor. I just do on the canine area. This is my head. And then I go on with the surgery. We will see only one side because the other one is just the same. So we go with the drill, with a very good irrigation, with a saline solution, of course, and I suggest you to have a cold saline solution. Don't take it from put it in the fridge. Usually we don't have a lot of space in the area, so we have to be very, very gentle, very precise. And in this case, I will do a handle preparation because my idea is to do immediate loading here. So after the first drill, I go and screw the implant in, and I love to do this with my hand, with a screwdriver or with a racket. I don't like to do it with a micromotor, because even if the micromotor is very, very low, it's still quite fast. So you can overheat the bone, inserting the implant, and on the other hand, if you do it by hand, you have a very good, full control of the position and a full control of the insertion torque. So this is a starfly implant and a 3.5. This is the bone, and I will do the same thing on the other side. So here is the temporary abutment. Here is the implant here. And the ideal position should be something like that. So I should have at least 1.5, but 1 also is enough limiter for the adjacent teeth. And I should go maybe deeper, 2 millimeter or 3 in relation to the junction. But we will discuss about this because this is a very important point, because it's not always like that. This is strictly related to the implant connection. So this concept can be good or not, it depends on the connection. So here is the final restoration of the patient. So, as I told you yesterday, when you place the implant in the bone, the only thing that keeps the implant in place is primary stability. That's it. After a long period, you will have the secondary stability, that means also integration. But at the start, primary stability is the only force. Implant stability in general is done by primary plus also integration. But during all the first period, to have an implant that gives you a very high primary stability is fundamental. If you do immediate loading, but also if you do delayed loading, you need stability. And which are the things that change the stability? The bone quality, of course, the macro and the microstructure of the implant, the dimension of the implant site preparation, and also the linkage of the implants. If you have different implants and you link it together, this will change, of course, the stability. So going fast with the bone A very good way to do classification is the one from Provenzano, so from D1 to D4, and we know that usually the D1 bone is in the area of the chin. Then we do have D3, D2 or D3 in the area of the mandible in the upper, and D4 in the posterior maxilla. And for a long time, at the time of Brandemark, this area was considered very, very good for placing implant because it gave a very high primary stability. But this is not correct because the reality there is that the primary stability is very, very high. But the problem is that there is a very few blood and very few cells. So as we are not carpenter, we can feel very good primary stability, but the healing process will be very difficult in that area. So we can have dense bone or sponge bone, and of course this makes a difference. We have to focus our attention about the microstructure of the implant because this is very important to give a primary stability. You can see there the X-ray. I did a publication comparing different implant systems with the primary stability to understand which could be the better. And the characteristic of the implant have to be like that. So sharp tray, apical blade, a straight apical border, head integral. Which are the advantages for this? The self-drilling, that is very, very important. Self-dating, easy insertion. Why that is so important? Because it helps you to do an easy surgery, to put in the right position. And even if your preparation is not so perfect, if you do have a active implant, you can correct. How you can see here. Another very important point for your implant system is the variable thread design. If you have a different thread design on the implant, this will increase a lot your stability. Why? What you have to think, if you start to put the implant and the first thread are the red one, they go in the bone. Then you go deeper and arrive the green one, and that thread still found bone, new bone. Then the yellow one, another new bone. So this gives you a very, very high primary stability. On the other hand, if you use implant where the thread design is always the same, you go deeper and the new thread will go in the same space of the other. So this changes a lot the primary stability and the bone to implant contact. So think, for example, the implant on the right, always the same thread. Different here, different thread, or there, it changes a lot the primary stability. And once again, primary stability is a key point if you want to have success. The other point is also related to the microstructure of the implant that is important for the healing mechanism, but also for the primary stability, because rough surface increase to the primary stability and increase also the secondary one because help you to healing in a better way. Nowadays, the implant surface anyway are all quite similar. I mean, we are talking about sandblasting to create a microsurface from 20 to 40 microns and a double thermal etching process. That's the gold standard in the market at the moment. And many companies will come in your office and will tell you, doctor, I have the best and new surface. It's not real. They are almost the same. But tomorrow, I will show you something very, very interesting. Because I'm working now since 4 years with a European project that is called Horizon 2020. And we developed a very new, very interesting surface. That is a biological surface. It's an implant surface plus the growth factor of the patient. So it's a specific individual biological surface. And what is amazing that on this surface we are able to apply the fibrin, the stem cells, the growth factor, and the BMP of the patient. But we will discuss about this tomorrow. It will be a surprise for tomorrow, but it's something very, very powerful and very innovative. Of course, how we can change implant stability? We can change it, we can change the bone, the kind of bone, of course, but we can change the site preparation. So if we do have poor density, we can do an under preparation of our bone. In any area of the mouth, not in the area of the chin. Don't do it in the area of the chin. There can be a problem because, as I told you, there is no base, there is no cells, so very hard dealing. If you put an implant under compression in the area, it's very bad, it's not a good idea. Another option, and a good option to treat this area of the chin, that as I told you, is a very, very bad area, what I suggest, or to use growth factor, or the surface that I will show you tomorrow, or another option can be to use the piezo. The utility of using the piezo is that the piezo is the only machine that I can cut a bone and I can preserve the vitality. Give me a second, please. Okay, so I'm preparing here the bone, not with the drill, but with the piezo. Because with the piezo, we know from histology, I did a publication in this direction, very interesting, that when we cut the bone with the piezo, we add live osteocytes on the cutting surface. That means live cells on bone. That means less necrotic material, and that means that much more easier for the fiber to leakage and to start the healing process. That's why in that area, in post-extractive case, can be very, very useful to use the piezo, the growth factor, and another thing that can be very useful there is to use one-piece implant. That means the implant with abutment itself. Why? Because it is strictly related to the connection. And in a few minutes, I will talk to you about connection, and it's an extremely important point. You can skip a little bit, maybe. So here is the power implant that is part of IML, is a one-piece implant. That means that the implants and abutment are all one piece, are integrated abutment, and you screw it in. The problem here can be to put in the right parallelism, but if you use the piezo, it will be very easy to find the right position. So I screw the first one in, and then we will do the same job, exactly the same job on the other side. And with the piezo, look, you have very few bleeding for gravitational effect of piezoelectric device, and you have also the contamination of the site. And also is a cheaper therapy. So we go and do exactly the same. We take our bracket and we screw it in. That's it. So here is the patient, here the implant, here is the temporary. So the idea with the piezo is quite easy. So let's go now to a very important point. That is the connection. Because when you choose your implant system, I don't care what you like. I mean, I'm not here to support any kind of implant. I just want to give you some concepts and let you free to choose what can be better for you. So when you have to choose an implant, the first thing you have to take a look is the primary stability. You really need an implant that gives you a very high primary stability. Even if you want to do all your life the laser loading, you need primary stability. The second thing you really have to take care is connection. Abutment with implant connection. That's very, very important. You see in my presentation today and yesterday, you see I used two-piece implant, but sometimes I use also one-piece implant. Which are the difference? And this helps us to think about connection. I will tell you. There is a very old publication, it was 2001, and it was demonstrated a lower crystal resorption around one-piece implant versus two-piece implant. So if you put one-piece implant, you lose less bone than two-piece. And of course, Brannemark get crazy for this. Which is the biology of the tower? Easy. What we know from biology, what we know from experience, what we know from Brannemark studies, from Brannemark school, is that at the second stage, when we put the abutment, or we put the earring cap, or what else, often we open the flap and the implant is perfect. It's at the level of the bone, sometimes under. We put the connection and then we lose bone. About 1.5 to 2 millimeter bone goes down all around the implant. And for Brannemark, this was normal. Say no, it's because of the load and the bone goes down to the first thread. Is this true? No. So we place the implant, everything okay. We put a connection and the bone goes down. And this is called the biological age around the implant. So we do have a soft tissue development and everything. And this is, for a long time, it was the only reality. But after a little bit, something started to change, because after we find in the market this kind of implant. So implant were the so-called transgingival implant. So we have a neck, and we leave the neck, like a strong implant, in the gum. And what happened? That bone doesn't go down. So it doesn't depend from the load. It's another story. In fact, if I take a standard Brannemark implant and I don't put at the level of the bone, but I leave it upper, I don't lose 2 millimeters of bone. Or if I take a one-piece implant, I don't lose bone. Sometimes I gain bone. So if I use, for example, the power implant for my health, I can keep completely my bone, like here or like there. But there is not one piece. So what is happening there? There is something different. Here, this is a universal implant. It's not one piece. It's not one piece. It's two pieces. Because this is universal implant, and what we add here with universal implant, and not only, of course, with universe, is something called platinum shifting. And platinum shifting, I will give you another strange information, like I gave you yesterday, a lot of strange information. But platinum shifting is not real. It doesn't work at all. What I mean? The idea of platinum shifting is I will put a smaller abutment in a bigger implant. So when I put my implant, anyway, as biology is always the same, I will lose 1.5 millimeter, but I will lose a part horizontal and a part vertical. It's not true. I did a very interesting publication, a study on men with a good friend of mine, Elionetti from Italy, a colleague. And we tried to use different of this distance. This is called the misfit. So the idea was, if we increase the misfit, if we increase the horizontal, the vertical will decrease. It doesn't happen. It's not like that. Why? Because there is another aspect that we have to consider. Platinum shifting is not enough. Platinum shifting is very good because we have the same abutment for all diameter size. So it's great. When a lot of you are young, but when we started to work, any diameter had its own abutment. It was crazy. So pattern shifting is very, very good, but it's not enough. Why is not enough? Because there is the so-called pumping effect. When we put an implant under load, you will see better here. Look, it opens a little bit and close. I will show you again. It open, close, and squeeze bacteria. So even if you do the connection here and you squeeze, the bacteria are here. And once again, our body is very smart. See bacteria, I go away. So you need platform shifting, but you need also a very stable conical connection. So if you join these 2 points, you can achieve the best result. You can keep a lot of bone. But if you use only platform shifting or only a good connection, it's not enough. You have to join these 2 points. It's very, very important. And these make a difference in how to place your implant. Because if you use a conical connection with platform shifting, you can go also under the level of the bone. It will work. But if you use a standard connection, please leave the implant 1 millimeter outside of the bone. Don't go deeper. Don't go to the bone level. Because if you do this, you lose bone. So that's a very important key point. Another advantage of platform shifting is also that move the micromovement away from the bone. Because another thing that we have to take care of, you have to take care of when you choose your implant system, is that you put an implant to give a crown to the patient, and the patient will bite. And this will transfer the forces from the crown to the abutment, to the implant, to the bone. So in doing this, it's very important to have a very good implant system. When I start to work with AML, I say to Giovanni Ganino, okay, we should do some tests, some load tests. He say, no problem, I'm sure about, okay, but we won't do in vertical. I want to do with tilted implant. Because if you see, a lot of companies, all the stress tests are with the vertical implant. It's quite easy. But in real life, you will never have vertical load. You will always have tilted load. And what we did was very interesting because with a tilted implant, with a load of 50 Newton, we have no stress area. With a load of 150 Newton, is almost cold and it's a quite big power. And we had to reach 250 Newton to have some hot area here. That's the possible breaking point. But the interesting thing is that it's not circular, it's just here. So it can resist the stress. And we need to reach 500 Newton to have something that can be probably a problem, but it won't be because once again, it's not circular. So this is very important for 2 points. One, you don't have broken implant. And I will show you in my presentation a lot of broken implant, and it's a big deal. The second thing is that the power, the forces that are related to the bone are better because this is a mathematical model. This is with a 15-degree abutment. When you bite, you got some forces that go on the bone. And it's very important to have a very stable system. If we increase the angulation to 25, we also increase the stress on the bone. And in fact, I'm not a big lover of all-on-4 technique if we think about very tilted implant, because what I do all-on-4, but if I do a bone, I prefer to put 2 more implants into the safer. But we will talk later about this when we talk about full arch. Why is so important the connection? Because if I do have this kind of connection, I can achieve this result. Look here. So this is immediate loading, this is temporary, but look the final crown. Look this papilla. Look this papilla. It's impossible to achieve this result with a standard connection. If you try and do this with a flat-to-flat connection, you will have for sure a black triangle there, for sure. The same surgeon, the same surgery. What it changed here is the implant system. Look, it arrives almost to the incisional portion. So that's why connection is so important. I don't have here the pumping effort. I don't lose bone, and everything looks very nice, looks very healthy. And I have no other option here because these girls have diastema, and we want to keep something very similar to this. So that's why the implant is so important. Let's change a little bit topic now, and I will show you only one case, and it's related to what I told you yesterday. I told you a very good way to lose implant is to place implant and to put a removable on during healing. Because the 90% of the blood support comes from periosteum. So if you press the periosteum with a removal, you got a compression, and you don't have sufficient blood support for the implant, and you will lose an implant. In fact, nowadays in the lower, not in the upper, I prefer also for a removal to do immediate loading. So, free implant, abutment, the ball abutment, and immediate loading. And in my experience, it works better than the late loading in the lower, not in the upper. In the upper, to be honest, I prefer not to do removal. I say to the patient, okay, use a standard one, it will work. Or if the patient really wants to have a smaller ball, I always do a bar. I don't use a ball on that. Another thing that I want to tell you, looking into this image, as there are a lot of students, I don't know that for very good doctor here in the fifth row it's not useful, but for the student it can be very important. Because when I was a student, nobody teach to me this, and I made some mistake. In the area from the mental to the mental, I can do whatever I want on bone. I can go deep, I can reach the margin, no problem on bone, but I'll be very, very gentle on soft tissue. I can't do any vertical incision in the area between the mental nerve. The only one I can do is in the middle, in between the central incisor. So if you want to do vertical, you have to go back to the mental nerve. If you need to do vertical in the area of the chin, the only one can be in the middle. And what is crazy, I read some paper, for example, of when you take the blood from the chin, bone block, we'll see this tomorrow, and some doctors say one of the complications is to have some paresthesis because of the bone of the chin. It's not true. You can't take the bone of the chin, you will never have paresthesis. The problem, if you read the paper, is they do vertical in that area to take the bone. So please remember, in the lower, just in the middle for the vertical, or back to the central, to the forearm. So let's change again topic and I talk about sinus lift. I put these images because in Italian, donkey is asino, so it's very similar to sinus. And once again, crestal sinus lift and immediate loading. I want to tell you something. I am showing yesterday, today, and tomorrow a quite difficult case. The message is not go at home tomorrow and do it the same. The message is, if come work in a case like that, and you will arrive to do this kind of case, think how can come work in an easy case. So here, for example, what I did for this patient was sinus lift and immediate loading. And once again, I used the piezo to do this. Why? Because with the piezo, it's very easy to cut the cortical bone without ruining the membrane. And with the piezo, and the water inside the piezo, I can really have a good elevation of the membrane, a big elevation in a very easy way. I will show the clip. So the clip should be, no, it should be later. So this is the implant, and the implant 2 months later. This is the Starfly implant I use in this case. Look how easy. There are very, very small flap. And I'm preparing with the piezo, with the first insert to reach the cortical bone. And then when I reach the cortical bone, I change, I use another one that blow a lot of water. So I check with the X-ray because you don't have sensibility with the piezo. You can feel that the cortical with the drill, but not with the piezo. So I change, and I do the final cut and the elevation. Then I will put some graft material, and then the implant, and the abutment, and everything you know. And here is the implant 5 years after load. And what is interesting, if we take a look to the panoramic, is that we did a surgery to place only this implant for another money of the patient, but with a very easy surgery. I could put also the second molar, or if you need money, maybe also the wisdom tooth you can put with the implant. So with a very easy approach, a lot of bone was gained there. Let's see another case similar to this. This is a colleague, is a dentist, and he wanted to start the replication from this side. He didn't want to do a full arch, but to do it gently. So I started the extraction. I laid that crown, not because I will leave at the end, but to check the occlusion. And what I usually do in my surgery is to start with what is easier. So, which is the easier implant for me? I start from there. Why? Because you do the first implant and you feel better. And you say to the patient, oh, the first one is done. On the other hand, you start with the sinus. You break the membrane, you start to get red and stressed, and the patient feels this, and all the surgery change completely. So go step by step. That's why I'm starting from the point. Then I will put the second one easy with the drill. And another trick, when I put the second one, I'm using the insertion tool on the first one. Why? Because if the first one is in the right position, if I put the head of my micromotor in contact with the insertion tool, I will be in the right position. And once again, I go and screw with my screwer in the upper, of course. And then I will do the last tube implant with the sinus augmentation with the piezo, and at the end I will have a normal length implant. And as I showed you before, it's quite easy. There is very few bleeding also because of the gravitational effect of the piezo. And in this case, I use a graft, tricalcium sulfate graft mixed with CGF, with concentrated growth factor. I'm sorry I was not able to understand all your lesson about graft, because I'm sure it was very, very interesting. And I will tell you my position during my presentation about graft. So this is 3 calcium sulfate mixed with PRF. And then the standard lead implant and a screw in it. And I will do the same, exactly the same thing also for the other one. After this, I will do also a lateral augmentation. So here's the last one. Lateral augmentation, then I will put the abutment and I will realign the temporary. And as I told you yesterday, how can you do here a non-functional immediate loading? It's impossible because it's half arch. So of course you will go in contact when the patient go home. That's why we have always to think to the occlusion. Don't make the mistake to leave space and say, okay, I'm safe because I have space. Think to the occlusion. After you check all the occlusion, you can also write everything, but only after thinking and checking the occlusion. This is a resorbable membrane. This is Michelangelo, the name. And here's the climb and reline and go home. And this is the X-ray before the final operation. So we can also increase the number of implants, like here. So we can do some extraction, and we can, after extraction, we can place our implant. And as I told you before, look what I do here. I go with the probe all around. Why? Because I want to keep the PDL. And the reasons for which I want to keep the PDL is that in PDL, I do have the BMP. So I don't want to lose the power of BMP. So I try to disconnect as much as possible the PDL. And for the same reasons, I won't go with a spoon to clean everything. Of course, if there is a lesion on the apex, I will take it out. But try and keep the PDL. As I told you yesterday, if you think you see a CT scan and you see a normal canine that looks out of the bone, why? Because the PDL keep a very thin layer of bone. After this, we have to do gentle extraction. And I always say to the patient, it will take longer for the extraction than for implant placement, because actually very, very gentle. And after extraction, we go and place our implant. As I told you yesterday, if we open the flap or if we don't open the flap, is a completely different healing partner. This is not a flapless surgery, because if I do the extraction and I get the varus, there is my flap. But the healing is similar to a flapless surgery. Which is the difference? That when I cut the gum, I give an information to the gum to produce substances that go and inhibit BMP. So BMP helped me to produce bone, but I cut the gum, I raised the periosteum, and from here started the release of nodules, choroids, a lot of substances that try to avoid the bone formation. That's why when it's possible not to open the flap, of course it's not always possible, but when it is possible with guided surgery or with the alveolus or when the bone is very, very much, it's much more better in terms of healing not to elevate. I know maybe you feel less surgical, but do it because the healing will be completely different. Another thing that I told you yesterday, we never take care in oral surgery about the timing of the surgery. That's a big mistake. If you go in any hospital and you go in a surgical field, the first thing you will see on the wall is the clock. Why? Because when you do general surgery, you have to take care of the time. And we need to do the same thing in our surgery. When we open a flap, when we elevate the periosteum, the bone is not breathing. So we have to be very, very fast in our surgery. Not to go to the bar and drink coffee, because it's very important for the patient. So it will be very easy. If the system is easy, we prepare, we put implants, we put abutment, we will go deeper because of the connection and because it's post-extractive, and that's it. We can also skip for another line, so here is the abutment. And of course, for example, with HML, the opportunity to have 12 position is great, because for sure you'll be able to put the implant in the right parameters. And then you can put the temporal. Give me a second. Let me just do the presentation. So, let's go now to the last topic of today, and I keep all the 5 words for tomorrow. But I want to talk to you today about full arch. This case is not of mine, otherwise I will show them. And this is amazing, because here there is all the history of implantology. There is superiosteal implant, blade implant, Tramonti implant, Molbani implant, Shalom mills, everything is there. Everything is broken. This is a crazy doctor, because something broken and put something more. But I want you to think something. If the ceramic are good and the patient can buy it, this patient is happy. So please, as I told you yesterday, we don't have to think as dentists. The patient doesn't care about implant connection, surface, they want teeth. So we have to go in that direction, of course, working well, not like that. But we have always to keep in our mind that if you want to have successful dentist, we have to intersect the desire of our patient. And let's talk now about full arch. And I will start talking about 2 very old cases. Why? Because when I started doing the loadif, I went to the Congress, and at that time, it wasn't good to do video loading. And they always ask me, doctor, but which is your follow-up? I was very young. And say, 2 years, 3 years. And they start to do like that with the head. So, like, you won't work. At the end, it didn't happen. But I want to start with very old case for these reasons. So here is a 53 years old female, is an ED smoker. We spoke yesterday about smoking, with a positive analysis in the family for tongue cancer, the sister, and opposed upper arch. So here was the situation. And we are talking more than 20 years ago. And in fact, look for the young, how was the past? We didn't have a computer or something like that. We take a paper, transparent paper, and we draw the implant that we had to place. So it was quite nice. And what I did here were the extraction. And what I did here, So what I did in the past, but to be honest, maybe we should reconsider today, is to leave 1 or 2 residual roots. Do you know why? For perception. I will tell you one thing, that implants don't give proprioception to the patient. What does it mean? If you do a bridge work, a full arch, and you try with a paper, how do you feel? Perfect. You check, and it's touching maybe only half arch. You grind, you leave only the canine. How do you feel? Even better. So implants at least for the first 2 or 3 years, maybe after some years it happens, doesn't give any proprioception. So the reasons for leaving some residual root is to maintain proprioception. And when I did this in the past, I never had a broken ceramic. Nowadays, I do this, probably extract this tube, and sometimes the ceramic broken. So here is the patient, and of course, for the residual, I do a primary crown with permanent cement, and then everything can be done with a temporary one. So here is 8 years post-op. Here is 15 years post-op. It's quite good after 15 years, and here is 19 years post-op. Now I don't have the half. I have another one should be around 23 years, almost the same. So the follow-up is not so short. What is extremely important, but we will see this tomorrow, case by case, position by position. When you do extraction and implant, please remember that the position we have to put the implant is not the position where the roots stay. Some years ago, there was a company that had a brilliant idea. They told, send me the CT scan of the patient, and I will send you an exact replica, exact copy of the root of the patient in titanium. You do the extraction, and you put it in. It looks clever, but the reality, it didn't work. Why it didn't work? Because this bone is sufficient for the root, and now you know why. It's sufficient for the root because there is the PDL, and in PDL I do have the BMP, so the root can keep that bone. The implant can't. So at the end, the position in which you have to put your implant is not this one. This is not correct. You will lose the buccal bone. This is the one. So you have to be always in any place of the mouth limbo. Always. Tomorrow I will show you for any area the right position, but it will be always lingual, palatal. Which is the problem? That when you do the extraction, it's very easy. With a piezo, it's not a problem to go there. But with the drill, what can happen? You start to work like here. You press, and you skip here. No good. So what we have to do is to go in a very parallel direction with the first drill, or sometimes a trick is to use a Lindemann bar with high speed. You go very parallel, you start to go in, and then you change the inclination, and you go in that direction, and do the final preparation. That's the only way to do in the right way. On the other hand, if you do extraction, you could also do extraction and just place implant, but it's not good. Oh. So this is the bone, as I told you before, after you use the piezo. So here is with the piezo, and there is with the drill. There is a huge difference. Here I have a porous surface, and this porous surface leads to early healing phenomena. Here is the literature. We have the presence of nucleated osteocytes on the osteotomy surface. Let's go back for a moment. What I tell you yesterday, the first component that you really need for healing, which is, do you remember? The very first component. It's a fibrin. So for the fibrin, it's much more easier to go there and stick than to go there and stick. The idea is like in normal dentistry. If we have to do a reconstruction, what do? We use an aging agent to create a porous surface for the bonding. Here is the same story. Here is a porous surface for the fiber. And I also have live cells, live oocytes on the surface. So I have imminent fibrin link, less necrotic material that means a reduction of focus and early bone recovery. Another situation in which piezo is very, very important is if I'm working very close to the nerve. This is the first area you have to respect in oral surgery. If you go a little bit deeper, you do like spaghetti with the nerve. So with the piezo is another story. It's much safer also in this situation. Let's see another full arch from the past, and then I will show you the new one from the past for the follow-up, of course. So at that time, she was a 70 years old female with antiplatelet therapy with an impacted canine in Brussels. And she had a lot of prostheses, one in the mouth and a lot in the back, and came in my office and say, hey doctor, this is bad. And this one on the back was made from him, no, even worse. And this other one made from the other doctor, very, very bad. So in that case, if you are a clever doctor, say, I'm orthodontist, sorry madam, I can't help you. But at that time I was stupid and say, no problem, I will solve for you the problem, I will do the best one for you. I didn't. But now she knows my ring, and every day, doctor, it's not working. So after a little bit, I was crazy and say, okay, let's do like that. Extraction of impacted canine. Crazy. 73-year-old, you are taking, I don't know, a tree from the bone. And I wait for healing. I didn't use growth factor at the time. Still old style with the transparent paper home and all the everything. And what I did here was a boxer, a whole style surgical stent, and I didn't use any drill because, as I told you before, if I want to improve the primary stability, if I want to try and change a little bit the quality of bone, I can use piezo. So I use this old insert of piezo. Now there are new older one. That one were not for implant insertion. I used the punch to cut the ground, the position, and I put all the implant. I jumped this one because it was very, very poor bone. And once again, immediate loading. And what is crazy is that it immediately stopped waxing. And here is the patient that I think 1 year later or something like that. And then 5 years, and then 70 years. Now she's still alive, and the bridge work is there. Once again, of course, there is a compromise. There is some peaks right there, but it doesn't matter. We are not talking about a 20 years old boy or girl. We are talking about a 73 years old man. So it would be crazy for me to do a graft here. I put some things right. So once again, please, you have to relate your therapy to the patient desire, to the patient age, to the patient aesthetic needs, to the patient money. There is only one diagnosis, and there are a lot of therapy we can do in our patient. As I told you yesterday, full arch rehabilitation is the easiest thing you can do if you follow my trick. If we want to do one implant, maybe any of this implant is perfect, it's good. I'm also fascinated about this one it comes from, I don't know from where, in English the term, but it's a crazy implant. Anyway, it doesn't matter because you take your time, you have a hard kit with a lot of drill, a lot of components, it doesn't matter, you are placing one implant. When I do one implant, I ask my secretary to take 1 hour for the patient. Do I need 1 hour? No, at all. I do anesthetic and I start talking. How is your little boy? Okay, now we have to wait 5 minutes for anesthetic. I go to the computer. Do you feel a little bit now? Okay, let's wait. Okay, let's take some X-ray. Why? Because the patient is coming in our office. If I place the implant in 5 minutes and I say to my patient, okay, give me 1,000 euro. He say, doctor, you are crazy. So that's why. And it's perfect. But if I do a flash, I take 1 hour and 15 minutes. And that is the maximum in local anesthesia in Europe. Let's say if you are a good teller, you can reach 1 hour and 30. That's it. After 1 hour and 30, the patient gets crazy, start to stand up and go away. So in a case like that, you really need a very easy system. To drill implant. Once again, not to go to the bar and drink tea or coffee, but because your timing is that one. It's 1 hour and 30. That's important for the patient management. That's important for biology. Because during that 1 hour and 30, the bone is almost not breathing. So what I do is quite easy. I prepare a temporary like that. Like, when you do a normal crown preparation. So it's completely open. Of course, I already know occlusion and everything. Then the patient comes in the office, I place the implant, I place my abutment, and I reline the temporary. That's it. And here is already the fit. I'm sorry, I jumped one in the presentation. Okay, maybe it's in the wrong order. So this is the temporary. And I just reline it and say to the patient, okay, you can go home. Don't bite our feet for 1 month and see you in a few days to recontrol the occlusion. Then I wait for 6 months in the upper and 3 months in the lower. Then I go back to Brown school. But the patient is with a temporary, with a fixed temporary, is not in a hurry to finish and to conclude the bridge work. Let's go to the model one. Another trick, I won't tell you another trick, we still have time. What I do in my practice, it was teaching to me in US from George Romanos, is a very good doctor, a very good friend, but is also a very, very good manager, market man. I do a flat therapy. What does it mean? The patient comes in my office and asks me, doctor, how much does it cost? And I say 10,000 euro for the upper. And the patient asks me, how many implants will you place? And I say, don't worry, I will do for you the best work I can do. I will put all your implant you need, and that's the price. That's it. I never write down 10 implant, 4 implant, 2 implant. And I will tell you why. For 2 reasons. First reasons, that patient go to the offer and start to talk, or go somewhere and start to talk and say, oh, I went to Dr. Palermo and the price was 10,000 because the patient talked and they asked for the price. When that other patient comes in my office, I have 2 information. 1 information. I know that maybe the patient can afford the therapy, have enough money to afford. That's important information for me. And the information I gave to the patient, when he asked me, which is the price, 10,000. She thought, oh wow, she's a very good man. She is asking me exactly the same price. So if I start to change the price for 1.7 or 1.9 or 1.6, the patient gets crazy and they start to think that you are doing the price in relation to the patient and not to the therapy. The last point, if I lose 1 implant, and it happens, never the patient asks me, please take it out from the bill, because the bill is not related to the implant. On the other hand, and Omar will be very happy for this, what I do, I really put as much implant as I can. Why? My success rate in full arch rehabilitation is 100%. The question could be, what does it mean that you have never lost an implant. No, I've lost a lot of implants, but it's not a problem because I will show you how to manage in a way that even if you lose an implant, it doesn't change. Let's see some cases. Look here, there's a hard case. Look at the occlusion. That one are lower. So what we have to do here, of course, we have to know in advance the occlusion, not the day of the surgery. Also, sometimes we remove all two, and then we start with the surgery. And here I use those. I don't open the flap. There I'm opening the flap. I'm using, I was telling you before, universe implant with platform shifting and conical connection. So I will go deeper and deeper. Don't do it with a flat connection. And here is the patient, and here is the patient. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 implants. So it's a whole of 7. But if I do this, I'm safe and no risk at all. So I'm paying to the company 2 implant, 3 implant more. But in a general and very expensive therapy, this doesn't make a big difference. But the difference for me is that if I lose 1 implant, it doesn't matter. If I lose almost 50%, I'll go 4 at the end. That makes a big difference. So, well, let's see another case, and then I will tell you another trick. So here is the situation. You can see very, especially on the right there, very poor bone. In this case, let's go back to the topic of tomorrow, flap or no flap. I have to open the flap, a gentle flap, but I have to open because I don't have enough bone not to open. So, and once again, the healing when you open and when you don't open is another biological mechanism of healing. It will take maybe 1 day to see the difference in between. So, what I do here, what I do always when you do, I'm using, of course, a surgical guide to some information, but it will be free-handed. And I always start from the central. So you have to start from the central and go back. Don't do the mistake to start from the molar and go mesial, because maybe the central incisor will be in the middle. So you have to focus on aesthetic. So you start from the central. I often do central, then I jump lateral, canine, and then I go back. And look, what is important is to have a system like Universe. 2 drill, implant, that's it. Because remember, 1.5 hours is your limit, is your maximum. Or on the other end, you can do sedation. You can stay 3 days. But you still have the problem of the lack of oxygen for the bone. So I told you I prefer to screw it with the end. I know that maybe it's less elegant, but give me a full control. The other trick I already told you. I leave the insertion tool and I put in relation the head of the micromotor with the head of the insertion tool. So after I see the first implant is in a good position, the second one will be much more easier for me to go and put in the right place. And again, 2 drill and implant. So we need more 2 or 3 insertion tool, of course, to do this. After, you can also put the abutment. You don't need to have 8 insertion tool. You can put time by time. Another thing, you always see in my clip that I move my head, because you see my head on the camera. That's very important, because when we place implant, we need at least 2 points of view. If you look only with a point of view, maybe you finish your surgery, you see X-ray, and all implants are like that, are sleeping. So it's a tridimensional position of the implant. So you need, like in the crown preparation, at least 2 points of view. So you have to move your head. The second point, very important, during the surgery, you have to ask your patient, please close. This is important for the patient because we relax the muscle, but this is also very important for you because when the patient closes, you are visualizing and you are rethinking to the right occlusion of the patient. Because the idea is to use your idea and to use straight implant, straight abutment, sorry. If you use 50 degrees is okay, 25 is better not, you can use of course. But the idea is to use straight. So we can screw it. And again, you put the abutment, but the hardest part is done because the aesthetic part is done. You can jump a little bit, doesn't matter to see the other point of view. Of course, in the posterior area, sometimes can be difficult to use the other instruments, so you use rackets to be more comfortable also for the patient. And we go on the other side, and it will be the same, nothing will really change. But once again, the kit and an implant. So your other implant, and look, I do have the abutment there, an insertion tool, so I have all the implants in the right spatial position. And I put this, and I think Malo now is crying because I'm putting an implant so back. But it make a huge difference. So once again, the implant can be at the level of deeper in the bone because of the connection of humerus implant. And let's go now to X-ray. 8 implants. So I put the abutment, I put the temporary, I check the occlusion. Once again, how can you do here a non-functional? It's impossible. This function is always functional. So with the abutment, I relight everything. I check the occlusion and I ask the patient to come any 1 month for a check. Do I need? No, it's just to take money. Because I can do nothing. I check occlusion a little bit, that's it. Because what I do here is to use a strong cement. I don't put bone. I put a strong cement, like carbon, to give you an idea. Because it's a splint I'm going to do. After 6 months in the upper, the patient comes in my office. I say, okay, what will be the last control? I take the number and I take everything out. Maybe, I don't know, maybe this implant is moving. What I do, I don't need a mistake. With my hand, I screw down. Here, I go to the sink, I put it out, and I re-cement the temporary. That's it. And I say to the patient, okay, in 15 days, we will do the final operation. That's patient management. Because at the end, I'm doing the work. Maybe I will have an extension there, it doesn't happen, but nothing happened. As I didn't, as I told you before, I didn't do a patient a price per implant. I did a operation, a flat therapy. So this is the price for the upper or for the lower rehabilitation. Of course, the temporary had to be quite aesthetic in the buccal aspect, but have to be very, very bad inside because it's all raising. It had to be very big to keep everything in position and not to break. At the end here, it was possible to keep all the implant. But here, I don't risk, I can't risk, even if I lose 3 implants, I still can finish my bridge work. And for me, this made a big, big difference. Because if I do a whole forward for a patient and I lose 1 implant, I do a removal. No option. No option. Let's see one of the last cases where I use also, as introduce you, the one-piece implant. I know here in Syria still you don't have the power implant from what I have. There is one-piece implant. But it's a very interesting implant because as I explained, connection here, we don't have connection. We don't have pumping effort. We don't lose bone. Where we put, it stays. That's very interesting. Second point, it's very cheap. So maybe a patient can't afford a standard therapy with standard implant, with high level implant, and you can have a good quality implant with a lower price. And this is the story of this patient, because this patient was a patient of mine, and he did in the past this work. 6 implants, and everything was good. But then he lost his job. So he had no money, and he couldn't do the surgery, couldn't afford the therapy. So I was sad for him, and I said, let's do like that. I will do a course in my office, and I will do like surgery. If you want to be the patient, I will do the surgery, but there will be other doctor looking, there will be the camera. We will do it for free. And he said, okay, good, let's do it. This is the surgery, and look how easy can be the surgery. Here, if you remember the X-ray, I didn't put the three-dimensional. I do have a lot of bone. I don't need here to open the flap. Because if I go in the middle, I'm sure I'm in the bone. In the past, someone said, hey doctor, keep attention, because if you do this, there is an invagination of the epithelial cells. This is not true at all. I'm working with growth factor now since 10 years. So I know a lot about cellular biology. And if you take an epithelial cell and you put in the bone, in a very short time, the macrophages gains and eat. That's it. So you can put whatever kind of cell you want in bone. It won't survive. Bone is not a ground culture for any kind of cellular line. So once again, I use the same surgical cassette, the same surgical kit for universe and for power. And that's also very interesting. And as I told you before, please close, because you are visualizing the position, the right position. And here is extremely important because it's one piece. So I can grind it, but at the end, the position is that one. So it's exactly the same story like before. The difference here is that the abutment is already there, is integrated with an implant. What you see here are the punch of the point where I'm going to put all the implants. And once again, please close. And once again, I put in relation the head of the micromotor with the implant. Let's see, maybe another 2 implant and then we stop, because it's always the same story. So the first drill, the final colloidal drill, and then the implant, self-drilling, and this allows me also to change the position during the insertion, both with power and with universe implant. So I want to, we can skip, but I want to show you something. This movie is without any cut. It takes the full surgery 15 minutes, 1 to 5. If I had to do, I don't know, a root canal, I'm not good at root canal, it takes 1 hour to me for a premolar. And it's better if I don't do, because I'm very bad. But to give you an idea, I'm not a fast man. Is that if the system is easy and you do the right surgery, everything will be very easy. Maybe not 15 minutes the first time, maybe 1 hour, but it's the time of a good tooth cleaning. What is very important for the young doctor, remember, when you do a surgery, all the surgery has to be in your mind before doing it. So you have to see model, you have to see X-ray, you have to see CT scan first. All the surgery is in your mind, then you go in the surgical theater and you check your box. So, first drill, second drill, insertion tool, bracket, and everything has to be there. I forgot it to be there. Don't ask the nurse, please take me, everything has to be there. Then all the surgery is in your mind, and then you have just to do. To give an idea, it's like the pilot from Formula 1. So they are the best 20 pilots in the world, but they, before doing the race, they do on simulator several times. At the time of the race, they go in the car and just repeat what it is in the mind. And the surgery is the same thing. You have to do the same. Don't do the surgery while doing it. Do it before, without the mouth of the patient. If you do this, this can be the timing, 40 minutes and 38 seconds for everything. So we can skip, so we can have also time for questions. And once again, the buccal can be good, not very good, otherwise they go away with the temporary. But here, it should be very bad, because it should be very big to resist the stress. And here is the X-ray. They are in a good position. And the difficulty here, of course, is relation to the parallelism. But at the end, the patient that couldn't afford, that didn't have money for the therapy, it was possible for him to have a fixed bridge work anyway. And once again, if I lose one, doesn't matter. Look here. You could say, but why do you put here? This is the model technique. Look here, the mental there, visualization, and go in the direction. So what do I mean? To keep the bone, because as I told you since yesterday, bone is bone because it's under load. When bone is not under load, disappear. So it is not good. So the all-on-4 technique, the original all-on-4 technique was something great, but the patients were very old patients with severe bone atrophy. If you look, the first publication of law about all-on-4 was old patients with severe atrophy. So I agree, I still do it, but in that kind of patient. If I have a young patient with a lot of bone, we really need to keep the bone. So please put one implant more that is there. So it was possible today to have some more concepts. And tomorrow I will give you even some more, and I will tell you something really, really new. As I told you, it's a project that it took 4 years to be developed. It's a European research in collaboration with INL, and we developed the first biological surface of the story for the implant. And for the first time, and we do have 5 impactful publications at the moment about this. And for the first time, we obtained a bilateral healing of the bone. So from the bone to the implant and from the implant to the bone. And tomorrow, we will talk also about the complication. Because as I told you yesterday, if you work, you will always have complication. The point is how to manage it. So I will show you the complication, I will show you broken implant, I will show you lack of bone, I will show us a lot of complication, but above all, I will show you how to manage this complication. So let's say in perfect time, I finish my presentation and hope to see you here tomorrow. Thank you very much.
We thank Professor Andrea باليرمو for his lecture and for sharing his experience with us. طلاب هلا استراحة بريك، بس يا ريت تنزلوا من الباب هذا اللي تحت ونسمع. ترجعوا من الباب المؤلف عم